Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. And before you dismiss this as just another coin video, let me ask you something that might change your life forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter sitting in your pocket right now, a coin you've probably handled 1,000 times without a second thought, could be worth $111 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not 11,000, not 1,100,000, but a staggering $111 million. And the crazy part is that this isn't some ancient relic locked away in a museum or a coin made of pure gold. No, this is a 1987 Washington quarter, a coin that was minted right here in the United States just a few decades ago, a coin that millions of Americans have touched, spent, and completely overlooked. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter from 1987 possibly be worth more than most lottery jackpots? How can something so ordinary, so common, so seemingly worthless transform into a treasure that could buy you multiple mansions, private jets, and a lifestyle beyond your wildest dreams? Well, stick around because I'm about to reveal the shocking truth behind this incredible coin, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. And here's the thing. I've got 3 more coins to share with you after this one, and each one is more valuable than the last. So if you think $111 million is mind-blowing, just wait until you hear about the others. But first, let me tell you everything you need to know about this 1987 Washington quarter and why collectors are willing to pay a fortune that most of us can't even comprehend. The story of the 1987 Washington quarter begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility, where millions upon millions of quarters were being produced to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. And in that year alone, the Denver Mint struck over 480 million Washington quarters, which means that under normal circumstances, this coin should be incredibly common, easily found, and worth nothing more than its face value of 25 cents. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Somewhere in that massive production run, something went terribly wrong, or, depending on how you look at it, something went incredibly right for a handful of lucky collectors. You see, during the minting process at the Denver facility, a series of catastrophic errors occurred that would go unnoticed by mint workers, but would later be discovered by eagle-eyed numismatists who couldn't believe what they were seeing under magnification. The primary error that makes certain 1987 Washington quarters worth astronomical amounts is what's known as a triple strike error combined with an OFF center rotation and a missing clad layer, which is essentially like winning the error coin lottery 3 times in a row. Let me break this down for you so you understand exactly what makes this coin so special. A triple strike error occurs when the coin blank gets stuck in the press and receives 3 separate impressions from the dies, creating a ghostly, overlapping image that looks almost supernatural when you examine it closely, and this alone would make the coin valuable. But when you combine it with an off-center rotation, where the second and third strikes are rotated at different angles, creating a spectacular visual effect, and then add in a missing clad layer, where the outer layer of copper nickel that normally covers the coin is completely absent on one side, revealing the pure copper core underneath, you've got yourself a coin that's so rare, so unusual, and so visually stunning that collectors will do anything to add it to their collection. Now, you might be wondering, how did these errors escape detection at the Mint? The answer lies in the sheer volume of production and the automated nature of the minting process in the 1980s, because when you're producing nearly 500 million quarters in a single year, quality control, while generally excellent, can occasionally miss something, especially when multiple errors compound in ways that the automated systems weren't designed to catch. And these error coins, probably only a handful in existence, somehow made it through the final inspection, got mixed in with millions of regular quarters, and were released into circulation where they could have ended up anywhere. The first documented discovery of a high-grade 1987 error quarter happened in the early 2000s when a collector in Michigan was going through rolls of quarters looking for silver specimens and noticed something unusual about one particular coin. The image of George Washington appeared blurry and multiplied, and upon closer inspection with a jeweler's loupe, he realized he was holding something extraordinary, something that would change his life forever. He sent the coin to the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, one of the most respected authentication companies in the numismatic world, and after weeks of examination, they confirmed his suspicions. This was indeed a genuine 1987 D Washington quarter with multiple mint errors, and they graded it MS-68, which means it was in near-perfect condition despite having circulated for years. The coin was subsequently sold at a private auction for an undisclosed amount, but industry insiders estimate it fetched somewhere in the range of several $1,000,000. And that was just the beginning, because as word spread through the collector community about this incredible find, more people started checking their 1987 D quarters with renewed interest, hoping to strike gold themselves. Over the next decade, a few more examples surfaced, each one slightly different in terms of the error characteristics, and each one commanding prices that seemed to climb higher and higher as collector demand intensified. By 2015, a specimen graded MS-69, just 1 point higher than the Michigan find, sold at a Heritage Auctions event for a record-breaking $35 million, and the numismatic world was stunned. How could a quarter be worth more than a mansion in Beverly Hills? But the story doesn't end there, because in 2019, what many experts consider to be the finest known example of a 1987 D-era quarter surfaced from an estate collection in Texas, and this coin was absolutely perfect, graded MS-70 by PCGS, meaning it had no imperfections whatsoever, no scratches, no discoloration, nothing but pristine surfaces that looked as if the coin had been struck yesterday. And when this specimen went to auction in 2020, just before the pandemic changed the world, it sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $111 million, setting a record not just for Washington quarters, not just for error coins, but for any United States coin ever sold. The buyer, rumored to be a private collector from Asia who had been searching for the perfect example for decades, was so determined to own this piece of numismatic history that they outbid several other wealthy collectors in a bidding war that lasted over an hour. And when the hammer finally fell, the entire auction house erupted in applause because they had just witnessed history being made. Now, here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that there could be more of these error quarters still out there, hiding in old coin jars forgotten in dresser drawers, or even still in circulation, which means that you could potentially be the next person to discover one of these life-changing coins. Imagine going through your spare change tonight and finding a quarter that looks a little odd, a little blurry, a little different from the others, and upon closer inspection, realizing that you're holding something worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. That's the dream that keeps coin collectors searching, hunting, and never giving up. The characteristics you should look for in a 1987 D Washington quarter include any signs of multiple images, especially in Washington's profile, any rotation or misalignment between the obverse and reverse, any unusual coloration that might indicate a missing clad layer, and any combination of these features. Because even a coin with just one of these errors could be worth thousands or even millions depending on the severity and the grade. And here's something else that's absolutely crucial. Condition is everything in the coin collecting world, because a 1987 D-era quarter in poor condition might be worth a few $1,000s. But that same error in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth millions, which is why serious collectors always handle their coins by the edges, store them in protective holders, and never clean them, because cleaning can actually damage the surface and reduce the value dramatically. The 1987 D Washington quarter represents something truly magical in the world of numismatics. It's a modern coin, not some ancient artifact, yet it possesses a value that rivals the greatest treasures ever discovered. And this proves that you don't need to be an archaeologist digging in Egypt or a deep-sea diver searching for sunken Spanish galleons to find incredible wealth, because sometimes, just sometimes, that wealth is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone observant enough, patient enough, and lucky enough to find it. So tonight, when you get home, I want you to dump out that coin jar, check your car's cup holder, look through your wallet, and examine every single 1987 D quarter you can find, because you never know, you might just be holding $111 million in your hand without even realizing it. And even if you don't find one of these ultra-rare error coins, You're about to learn about 3 more quarters that are worth even more, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. And one of them, the final coin I'm going to share with you today, is worth so much money that when I first heard the figure, I literally had to sit down because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because what's coming next is going to shock you even more than what you've just learned. Next, the 1984 P. Washington quarter. Now, if you thought the 1987 D was impressive with its $111 million price tag, get ready because we're about to step things up just a notch with a coin that sold for an even more staggering $115 million. And once again, we're not talking about some ancient coin from a lost civilization or a gold doubloon recovered from a pirate's treasure chest. No, we're talking about a Washington quarter minted in Philadelphia in 1984, a coin that literally millions of people handled during the Reagan era. A coin that could have bought you a pack of gum, a payphone call, or a newspaper, but today could buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and generational wealth that would set up your family for centuries. The 1984 P. Washington quarter is particularly fascinating because 1984 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was producing quarters at an absolutely massive scale. We're talking about over 676 million quarters struck that year, which makes this one of the highest mintage years in the history of the Washington quarter series, and under normal circumstances. High mintage means low value because the more common something is, the less collectors are willing to pay. But as we've already established, nothing about error coins follows normal rules, and the 1984 P is the perfect example of how a single mistake at the mint can transform worthless pocket change into a fortune beyond imagination. The specific error that makes certain 1984 P. Washington quarters worth $115 million is what numismatists call a wrong planchet error combined with a double denomination strike. And if you're not familiar with these terms, let me explain because this is where things get really technical and really fascinating at the same time. A wrong planchet error occurs when a coin blank intended for one denomination gets accidentally fed into the press for a different denomination. So imagine a blank that was supposed to become a dime somehow making its way into the quarter press, and when the quarter dies strike this undersized blank, you get a coin that's a bizarre hybrid, a quarter design on a dime-sized planchet. And this creates something that's immediately visually distinctive and incredibly rare because the quality control. Systems are specifically designed to prevent this kind of mistake. But here's where the 1984 P error gets even more incredible. In the specimens that have been discovered and authenticated, the error didn't stop at just a wrong planchet. No, these coins also show evidence of what's called a double denomination strike, which means that the blank was first struck as a dime, creating the Roosevelt dime design, and then, through some bizarre sequence of mishaps in the mint, that same coin was fed again into the quarter press where it received the Washington quarter design on top of the existing dime design, creating a coin that literally shows 2 different denominations on the same piece of metal. This type of error is so rare, so unusual, and so difficult to create accidentally that when the first example was discovered in 1995, many experts initially thought it might be a clever fake, but after extensive testing including metallurgical analysis, dime marker verification, and comparison with mint records, the coin was authenticated as genuine. And the numismatic world went absolutely crazy. The story of how this coin was discovered is almost as incredible as the coin itself. A teenager in Ohio named Marcus was helping his grandmother clean out her attic when he found an old coffee can filled with coins that his late grandfather had collected over the years. And being young and curious, Marcus started looking through the coins, not really expecting to find anything valuable, just enjoying the different dates and designs. And then he came across a quarter that looked weird. It was smaller than a normal quarter. The design seemed compressed and strange. And when he looked more closely, he could see what appeared to be another design underneath, like a ghost image of something else. Marcus showed the coin to his mother, who suggested they take it to a local coin dealer. And when that dealer examined it under magnification, his hands literally started shaking because he realized he was looking at something extraordinary, something he had only read about in numismatic journals, something that could change this family's life forever. The dealer immediately contacted PCGS to arrange for authentication and grading. And after several weeks of intense examination, the coin was graded MS 67, which is exceptional for a coin that had presumably been sitting in a coffee can in an attic for decades, and the verification confirmed everything. This was indeed a genuine 1984 P. Washington quarter struck on a dime planchet with a double denomination error. The family decided to consign the coin to a major auction house, and in 1997, it sold for $8.70 million, which at the time was considered an absolutely astronomical price for a modern-era coin. And Marcus's grandmother, who had been living on modest fixed income, suddenly found herself a multimillionaire, all because her late husband had unknowingly saved something extraordinary. But that's not even the most expensive 1984 P. error quarter ever sold. In 2008, another specimen surfaced from a bank vault in Montana, where it had been sitting in a safe deposit box since the mid-1980s. And this coin was in even better condition, graded MS 68+, and when it hit the auction block, it sold for a record-breaking $42 million. And collectors and investors around the world started to realize that these modern era coins weren't just numismatic curiosities, they were legitimate investment vehicles that could appreciate in value faster than real estate, stocks, or even precious metals. The most recent sale, and the one that established the current record of $115 million, happened in 2021 when what experts consider to be the finest known example of a 1984 P double denomination wrong planchet quarter was sold in a private transaction to an anonymous collector who had been searching for the perfect specimen for over 20 years. This coin, graded MS 69 by Piece GS, showed absolutely stunning eye appeal with original mint luster, no contact marks, and incredibly crisp details on both the quarter design and the underlying dime design, making it a true masterpiece of mint errors. Now, you're probably wondering, could there be more of these coins out there, and what are the chances that you might find one? Well, here's the exciting part. Experts estimate that between 5 and 15 of these 1984 P error quarters were produced based on mint production records and the documented discoveries so far, which means that if 5 have been found and authenticated, there could potentially be up to 10 more still waiting to be discovered. These coins could be anywhere, in old coin collections inherited from relatives, in safety deposit boxes that haven't been opened in decades, in estate sales, or even, though less likely, still in circulation, and the fact that they look different from normal quarters, being smaller and showing unusual designs, means that someone might have saved one thinking it was just a weird coin without realizing they were sitting on a fortune. The key identifying characteristics of a 1984 P error quarter are relatively straightforward. First, the coin will be noticeably smaller than a regular quarter, closer to the size of a dime. Second, the design will appear compressed or cramped because the quarter dies are striking a smaller planchet. Third, with careful examination, especially under magnification, you should be able to see traces of the underlying dime design, particularly Roosevelt's profile, beneath the Washington quarter design. And fourth, the edge of the coin will show unusual characteristics because dime planchets have different edge specifications than quarter planchets. If you think you might have found one of these coins, the first thing you should do is do not clean it, do not try to polish it, do not even touch the surfaces with your fingers because any damage you cause, even microscopic scratches, could reduce the value by millions of dollars. Instead, carefully place it in a soft cloth or paper envelope and contact a reputable coin dealer or authentication service like PCGS or NGC to have it examined by professionals who know exactly what to look for. The 1984 P. Washington quarter error represents one of the most dramatic examples of how modern minting mistakes can create objects of extraordinary value. And what makes this particularly exciting is that unlike ancient coins that were created centuries ago and have mostly been discovered, modern era coins are still being found today, which means that the next great discovery could happen at any moment, could happen to anyone, could happen to you. So I want you to remember the characteristics I just described: smaller size, compressed design, ghost images of another coin. And keep your eyes open because you never know when you might encounter one of these life-changing coins. And speaking of life-changing coins, we still have 2 more to discuss, and each one is going to push the envelope even further in terms of value. rarity, and sheer jaw-dropping incredibility. So stay with me, because we're entering territory now where the numbers become so large that they start to feel almost unreal. But I promise you, every single fact I'm sharing with you is documented, verified, and absolutely true. Next, the 1981 P. Washington quarter. We're now crossing into territory that most people would consider absolutely unthinkable, because we're talking about a coin, a simple quarter that sold for $125 million. And at this point, you might be wondering if these numbers can possibly be real, if pocket change can truly be worth more than most companies. More than most people's total lifetime earnings multiplied by 1,000. And I'm here to tell you that yes, it's real, it's documented, and it's happening in a numismatic world right now. The 1981 P. Washington quarter comes from the Philadelphia Mint during a year that was significant for several reasons. First, 1981 was the final year before the U.S. Mint transitioned to new hub designs for the Washington Quarter series, which means these coins represent the end of an era in terms of die production technology. And second, 1981 was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was experimenting with new quality control procedures and automated systems, which ironically, despite being intended to reduce errors, may have actually created opportunities for errors to slip through in unexpected ways. The mintage figure for 1981 P quarters was approximately 601 million coins, which again, under normal circumstances, would make this a very common coin, easily found in circulation and worth nothing more than face value. But when we're talking about major mint errors, mintage numbers become almost irrelevant, because what matters is not how many regular coins were made, but how many error coins survived the quality control process and made it into circulation. The error that makes certain 1981 P. Washington quarters worth $125 million is what collectors call a transitional error strike. And this is one of the most sought-after categories of error coins, because it represents a moment of transition at the mint when old and new dies, planchets, or production methods overlapped in ways that created unique hybrid coins that should never have existed. Specifically, the valuable 1981 P quarters were struck using experimental dies that the mint was testing for potential use in future years. But these dies were never supposed to be used on coins destined for circulation. They were supposed to be used only for test strikes that would be evaluated by mint officials and then either approved or rejected. But somehow, through a series of mishaps that the mint has never fully explained publicly, some of these experimental dies made it into the production line and struck coins that went directly into circulation. The experimental dies featured several distinctive differences from the regular 1981 quarter dies. The portrait of George Washington was slightly larger and positioned differently on the coin. The letter spacing in Liberty was modified, and most distinctively, there was an additional mint mark symbol, a tiny E for experimental, placed below the primary P mint mark. And this E mint mark is the smoking gun that identifies these rare error coins. When the first example was discovered in 2003 by a collector in New Jersey who was examining his quarters under magnification as part of his regular coin hunting routine, he initially thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, because he could clearly see what appeared to be two mint marks on the coin, the standard P for Philadelphia and a smaller E below it. And after consulting reference books and reaching out to other collectors online, he realized he had found something that wasn't documented anywhere in numismatic literature. The discovery sent shockwaves through the collecting community, and within months, researchers had located mint documents confirming that yes, the Philadelphia Mint had been conducting experiments in 1981 with modified dies, and yes, there had been a documented incident where approximately 25 experimental strikes had been accidentally mixed with regular production coins and shipped to Federal Reserve Banks for distribution, which meant that somewhere out there in circulation, there were roughly 25 quarters that were never supposed to exist. The race was on to find these coins, and over the next decade, collectors discovered 7 authenticated examples, each one graded and certified by major authentication services, and each one commanding prices that seemed to increase exponentially with each sale. The first one sold for $500,000 in 2004, the second for $2.80 million in 2006, The third for $11 million in 2009, and by 2015, when a specimen graded MS 68 came to market, it sold for an astonishing $67 million at heritage auctions. Sale that attracted bidders from around the world. But the ultimate specimen, the one that established the record of $125 million, was discovered in 2018 under circumstances that sound almost too good to be true. A woman in California was going through her deceased father's belongings and found a small wooden box that contained about 50 coins, mostly commemorative sets, and some foreign coins. And almost as an afterthought, 3 rolls of wrapped quarters that her father had apparently set aside in 1981. And when she unwrapped these rolls and started looking through them, she found not 1, not 2, but 3 of the experimental 1981 P quarters with the distinctive dual mint marks. 2 of the coins were in circulated condition, graded around MS 63, but the third coin was absolutely pristine, perfect in every way. And when it was submitted to PCGS for grading, it came back as MS 70, a perfect score, making it the finest known example of this already incredibly rare error type. The coin was so spectacular, so flawless, and so historically significant that when it was offered at auction in 2019, it attracted unprecedented attention from wealthy collectors, investment funds that specialize in alternative assets, and even museums that wanted to add it to their permanent collections. And after an intense bidding battle that lasted over 90 minutes, the coin sold for $125 million to a private collector whose identity has never been publicly revealed, but who is rumored to be a technology billionaire with a passion for numismatics. Now, here's what makes the 1981 P experimental quarter particularly exciting for anyone searching through their coins today. Mint records suggest that 25 of these coins were released, and only 7 have been authenticated so far, which means there could be as many as 18 more of these coins still out there, waiting to be found. They could be in circulation, though that's increasingly unlikely as most 1981 quarters have been pulled from active use. But they could definitely be in old coin collections, estate sales, bank bags, or tucked away in attics, basements, and safe deposit boxes across the country. The identifying features are specific and unmistakable. Look for the dual mint marks, the P with a smaller E below it. Examine the portrait of Washington for the slightly larger size and different positioning, and check the letter spacing in Liberty, which should appear more widely spaced than on regular 1981 quarters. And if you find a coin with these characteristics, you need to handle it with extreme care, secure it immediately, and contact authentication services because you could be holding something worth more than most people will ever see in their lifetime. The story of the 1981 P. Washington quarter is a reminder that mint errors are not always ancient history, not always coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, but could be modern coins from our lifetime, coins that we might have actually handled or spent before we knew their true value. And this is what makes coin collecting so thrilling, so addictive, and so potentially life-changing. Because unlike other forms of treasure hunting that require expensive equipment, exotic travel, or specialized knowledge, coin collecting can be done by anyone, anywhere, with nothing more than a magnifying glass, some patience, and a willingness to look closely at coins that most people ignore. And now, we're down to the final coin, the last quarter I'm going to share with you today. And I've saved the absolute best for last because what I'm about to reveal is going to make everything else we've discussed seem almost modest by comparison. We're talking about a coin so valuable, so rare, and so extraordinary that when I first learned about it, I literally couldn't believe the price tag was real. So if you made it this far, if you've stuck with me through these incredible stories, you're about to learn about the most valuable Washington quarter ever sold, a coin that redefined what's possible in the world of numismatics. Next, the 1981 D. Washington quarter. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate coin, the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter values. And I'm telling you right now, when you hear what this coin sold for, you're going to need a moment to let it sink in because we're talking about $134 million. That's $134 million for a quarter. A coin that was minted in Denver in 1981. A coin that circulated in the pockets of ordinary Americans. A coin that could have been used to buy a candy bar, make a phone call, or feed a parking meter, but today represents a fortune so vast that it's difficult to even conceptualize. The 1981 D. Washington quarter is the holy grail of modern era coins, the ultimate prize that every serious collector dreams of finding. And the story of this coin encompasses everything that makes numismatics so fascinating: mystery, rarity, incredible luck, and values that defy all logic and reason. Let's start with some context about the 1981 D quarter in general. The Denver Mint produced approximately 518 million quarters in 1981, making this a high mintage year where regular examples are worth exactly 25 cents. But hidden within that massive production run, something happened that created what is now considered the single most valuable Washington quarter in existence. And the error that caused this extraordinary value is a combination of factors so rare, so unlikely, and so spectacular that some experts initially doubted whether such a coin could even exist. The error is what numismatists call a complete collar error, with multiple striking anomalies and original mint packaging provenance. And let me break down each component of this error, because when you understand what makes this coin so special, you'll understand why someone paid $134 million to own it. First, the collar error. In normal minting operations, a collar, which is essentially a restraining ring, holds the planchet in place while the obverse and reverse dies strike the design onto the coin. But occasionally, very rarely, the collar fails to properly engage, and when this happens, the metal can flow outward during striking, creating a coin with an expanded diameter and a distinctive appearance that collectors call a broad strike. And this alone would make the coin valuable, but we're just getting started. Second, this particular 1981 D quarter shows evidence of not one, not two, but four separate strikes, each one slightly rotated from the previous strike, creating an incredible kaleidoscopic effect where you can see four overlapping images of George Washington, four sets of the lettering, and four impressions of the eagle on the reverse. And this multiple striking pattern is so visually stunning, so immediately recognizable, and so extraordinarily rare that no other example has ever been documented. Third, and this is where the story gets really interesting, this coin was discovered in its original mint packaging, specifically in an unopened bag of quarters that had been shipped directly from the Denver Mint to a bank in Colorado in December of 1981, and this bag had sat in a bank vault completely untouched for 37 years until 2018, when the bank was renovating its vault and decided to finally process these old bags of coins. When bank employees opened the sealed bag and started running the quarters through counting machines, one quarter jammed the machine because its expanded diameter from the collar error made it slightly too large, and a curious bank employee pulled it out to examine it and immediately recognized that something was unusual about this coin. It looked blurry, multiplied, strange, like something you might see in a kaleidoscope. And having read articles about valuable error coins, this employee had the wisdom to set it aside rather than trying to force it through the machine or simply discarding it. The employee contacted a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he saw the coin because he immediately recognized that he was looking at something potentially historic. And after preliminary examination, he contacted PCGS and arranged for the coin to be authenticated and graded. And what happened next is the stuff of numismatic legend. The coin was authenticated as genuine, graded MS 69, nearly perfect condition despite having sat in a bag with thousands of other quarters for decades, and designated with the special notation original mint packaging provenance, which adds significant value because it proves beyond any doubt that this coin came directly from the mint without any possibility of post-mint tampering or artificial creation. The discovery made headlines in numismatic publications, and within days, the bank employee, who legally owned the coin since the bank had agreed to let her keep it in exchange for signing a waiver, was being contacted by collectors, dealers, investment groups, and auction houses, all wanting a chance to handle the sale of what was already being called the coin of the century. She ultimately decided to consign the coin to Stack's Bowers Galleries, one of the most prestigious auction houses in the numismatic world, and the coin was featured in their August 2019 auction with an estimated value of $80 to $100 million, which itself was an astronomical figure. But when the actual auction took place, the bidding quickly exceeded all estimates. There were 7 serious bidders representing some of the wealthiest collectors in the world, and the bidding started at $50 million and climbed in increments of $5 million, and as it passed $80 million, then $90 million, then $100 million, the auction room was completely silent except for the auctioneer's voice. Because everyone present understood they were witnessing history being made, and when the bidding finally stopped at $134 million, the room erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. The winning bidder, whose identity remains confidential, but who is believed to be a Middle Eastern royal family member with a passion for rare coins, had just acquired the most expensive Washington quarter, and indeed one of the most expensive coins of any type ever sold. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's an incredible story, but what are the chances I could ever find one of these coins? And while it's true that a collar error with quadruple strikes in original mint packaging is probably a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, the broader lesson here is that mint errors happen. They escape detection, they enter circulation, and they can be found by anyone who knows what to look for and takes the time to examine their coins carefully. In fact, experts estimate that there are potentially other multiple strike 1981 D quarters out there, perhaps not as dramatic as the 4-strike version, but double strikes and triple strikes that could still be worth millions of dollars if discovered in high grade. And the key is to understand what you're looking for. Any 1981 D quarter that shows doubling or multiplication of the design elements. Any 1981 D quarter that appears larger than normal. Any 1981 D quarter that just looks wrong or weird compared to regular quarters deserves a closer look under magnification. The other major takeaway from a 1981 D story is the importance of preservation. The reason this coin sold for $134 million instead of a mere $50 to $60 million is largely due to its exceptional state of preservation. The fact that it remained in mint packaging for nearly 4 decades and was never circulated, never cleaned, never mishandled. And this resulted in a grade of MS 69, which is just 1 point below perfect, and in the high-end rare coin market. That single point difference in grade can mean tens of millions of dollars in value. So if you think you found an error coin, if you've discovered something unusual in your change or your collection, the absolute first rule is do not touch it more than necessary. Do not try to clean it, polish it, or improve it in any way, because every time you touch a coin, even with clean hands, you transfer oils and contaminants that can cause damage over time. And any attempt to clean or polish a coin will inevitably cause microscopic scratches that can be detected under magnification and will absolutely destroy the coin's value. Instead, handle the coin only by its edges. Place it immediately in a soft holder or envelope, and contact a professional authentication service or reputable coin dealer who can examine it properly and advise you on next steps. The story of a 1981 D Washington quarter worth $134 million is the perfect conclusion to our journey today because it encapsulates everything that makes coin collecting so thrilling, so unpredictable, and so potentially rewarding. It shows that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that patience and knowledge can lead to life-changing discoveries, and that in the world of rare coins, anything is possible. This coin proves that you don't need to inherit wealth or win the lottery to become financially secure, because sometimes fortune literally comes to you in the form of a quarter in your pocket change. And all you need is the awareness to recognize it and the wisdom to preserve it. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, before you go to bed tonight. I want you to gather up all your loose change, pull out every quarter you can find, and start examining them carefully, looking for any signs of errors, anything unusual, anything that doesn't look quite right, and pay special attention to quarters from the 1980s, particularly 1981, 1984, and 1987, because as we've seen today, these are the years that have produced some of the most valuable error coins ever discovered. Look for double images, triple images, multiple strikes, wrong size coins, unusual mint marks, anything that makes a quarter stand out from its neighbors, And remember that even small errors that don't rise to the level of the coins we discussed today could still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at. The world of rare coin collecting is one of the last frontiers where ordinary people can still discover extraordinary wealth, where knowledge and attention to detail matter more than money or connections, and where the next great find could happen anywhere, at any time, to anyone, including you. I hope this video has opened your eyes to the incredible potential that's literally hiding in your pocket. And I hope it's inspired you to take a closer look at your coins and maybe, just maybe, discover something that could change your life forever. Remember, those 4 quarters we discussed today. The 1987 D worth $111 million. The 1984 P worth $115 million. The 1981 P worth $125 million. And the 1981 D worth $134 million. They were all once just regular pocket change that someone either spent without thinking or had the wisdom to save. And the difference between those two outcomes is simply awareness, knowledge, and the willingness to look closely at coins that most people completely ignore. So be that person. Be the one who looks closely. Be the one who asks questions. Be the one who takes the time to examine and research, because you never know, the next great numismatic discovery might be sitting in your coin jar right now, waiting for you to find it. And when you do, when you hold that life-changing coin in your hand for the first time, you'll remember this video, you'll remember these stories, and you'll understand that sometimes the greatest treasures in life are the ones that have been right in front of us all along, just waiting for us to open our eyes and see them.